Hey guys, Teresa here. Welcome back to my channel Lost My Thread. Today I'm going to update you with everything I made in the month of July. As I've been doing this year, I'm going to be first talking about what I sewed this month, but then I'll also give a bit of a general life update, including some things I get to cross off my 24 for 2024. The first thing I'll talk about is something that I sewed, which is this very awkward thing to try and show on a hanger. I don't feel like you're probably going to get too much of an impression of what it is. Obviously, I'll put in some photos so you'll be able to see. This is the Avery Leggings by Helen's Closet. I have had this pattern for a good long while. I've been intending to make it. I have to say from the off, just as a bit of a in advance, I am not really a leggings person. I did wear leggings in the late 80s, early 90s when I was a kid, and I have not really worn them since. I'm not really sure that leggings are for me, but I wanted to have something that I could use when I go jogging. I wanted to start jogging a little bit, just gradually and slowly, and it's nice to have something that is going to be comfortable but also has good pockets so things aren't going to be flipping and moving around the pockets. This is made out of I think it's called a micro modal jersey that I got from Guthrie and Ghani. They gave this out because every month they have packages you can get where you get a pattern and the right fabric that goes with it. I can't remember the name for it, but it's basically like a subscription service that they offer. But this was specifically given out for these leggings, and somebody else had made them up and told me that they were absolutely perfect for leggings. And so when that fabric came back in stock, I decided I would buy some of it and give it a go. I like the idea of the Avery leggings because they have a gusset in the crotch. I will say for myself, quite often that is the area of my pajama pants, lounge pants that tend to wear out the most quickly because I often sit cross-legged with my feet up and everything kind of stretches in the crotch area, and the gusset allows things to stretch a little bit more easily. It's also really good if you're using them for exercise. I have made the Hubie leggings by Sew Over It, which I thought were okay. I think they were pretty decent, but I did find that the crotch didn't really sit that flush, and I did notice that they kind of bent and pulled a bit, and I could see them breaking over time in the crotch area, not feeling as secure. These feel more secure as far as that is concerned, but I did find that the waist itself was quite loose. Now, I went off of the instructions, so I'm going to blame myself for this. You were supposed to put elastic around the top of the leggings. I do not like the idea of having elastic in the top of my leggings. To me, leggings are supposed to be comfortable, and they have what looks like a kind of a yoga waistband, which typically doesn't have elastic. And the Hubie leggings that I've made before have that kind of waistband. They don't have any elastic and they stay up fine. And I thought, well, this fabric has really good stretch and recovery. I'm just gonna make it without the elastic and see what happens. I have some mild regrets. I definitely clearly should have put some elastic there, but at the same time, I think the waist just should have been more narrow. The fit on this I feel like is just generally a bit odd. So it is a bit loose in the waist, even though I did size down because I wanted to make sure that it was going to be able to be tight enough. But it's quite tight along the calf. I don't know if it's just my legs are a little bit more curvaceous than the pattern is intended for, or if it's more just to do with the design and they're intended to be quite tight. They are, like I said, meant to be more, I think, more of an athletic style legging, so I think it probably makes sense for that to be relatively tight. There are different views, and I went for one that was longer, which does end up having a bit of gathering around the ankle, which I think is a cute detail. The main thing I will say with this is that I followed a blog post on the Helen's Closet blog to add this pocket. So the pocket is not part of the original design, but she gives you instructions of how to essentially create a side panel that you can then make a pocket on each of the sides. And I think that may not have helped with the stretch in the calf. I feel like that everything I did follow the seam allowance. I didn't go anything more narrow than the seam allowance, but I think just having more seams there in general means that there's just maybe a bit less stretch, or maybe that just is the way these leggings are. I really couldn't say. I'd be curious if anybody else has found any leggings that are particularly good that have like a pocket element. I'm not sure I'm necessarily wanting to go nuts and make loads of leggings again. I was slightly tempted to try and make these leggings again, but actually using the yoga waistband from the Sew Over It Hubie leggings that I have, because I felt like that waistband fit me very well and it was at the right point at my natural waist. So if I could kind of mash these patterns up, that might be closer to what I'm looking for. I think I basically just want to make those, but with the gusset from the Avery Leggings. So I'll have a look and a play and see if I can make something like that happen if I feel like I need to have more to, you know, go jogging around in. I will say for the purpose, they're fine. They're not super tight at the waist, but I don't feel like they're falling down. But periodically I was just kind of double checking and pulling them up. They're super high waisted, so I will say that it's not like they're going to be falling down and going very far. They'd have to go pretty far down to be an issue, but I want them to be comfortable. I don't think I'm necessarily a leggings convert. I think I would be curious to try some more that are maybe less sporty, less athletic, but it's not something that I'm feeling desperate for in my wardrobe. I'm glad to have this pair, and I know they will come in handy. The only other finished garment that I have is what I'm wearing right now. This is another Helen's Closet pattern. This is the March dress. I am so excited about this dress. This was in my summer sewing plan, something I really wanted to make. This is a beautiful Indian block print fabric that I got at the Stitch Festival. I think it was the Knitting and Stitching show. I'm terrible. It was the one in the autumn. And I really, really love the fabric. I feel like it is great colors for me. It's just so pretty. I like the size and the scale of the flowers. I like the pop of almost like a corally pink underneath. I think it's really beautiful, and I think it suits this pattern so, so well. I had seen that Helen and Caroline, both from the Love to Sew podcast, had made this dress in this type of fabric, so I knew it would work. What is great about this type of Indian block print fabric is that it is so light, like crazy super light. It is my favorite thing to wear in the summertime because it feels like you're wearing nothing. And this dress being so nice and loose, it feels like it just kind of skims over, doesn't really cling anywhere. It basically feels like you're not wearing anything. It's not touching your body anywhere that you don't want it to. It's very wonderful and comfortable on a hot day, and I'm excited to have this one in my wardrobe. It is just a pull over, so there's no fastenings, and I feel like it's just the right size. I did size down a size looking at the finished garment measurements, and I'm really happy with the size that I made. I didn't do any adjustments for like a full bust adjustment or anything. I will say I can see that the bodice section, if you call it bodice section, is slightly higher up than the back and the sides, but that's also in the original design if you look at the photos from the pattern. So maybe that's just a part of the design, or maybe that's just something that I'm happy to live with and I really don't mind. I did make one, I want to say, design choice that I'm not necessarily sure was the right design choice. I was aware that in general, this bit that flaps open, so you can theoretically tie it. I don't really like the look of it tied. I really would prefer to have it open. The inside here is meant to be the wrong side of your fabric, the inside of the fabric, because this section that goes over, and you probably can't even see it, there's some stitch lines here, but there's meant to be a section here that's kind of like a facing, but it actually goes on the front of the dress. And I didn't like the idea of having the wrong side of the fabric showing on these zits peeking through. So I decided, well, I'll put the facing on the inside then instead. But then I've kind of lost that design feature of having the extra fabric over the top with a slightly off print. I think I would have liked it better the other way around. I probably wouldn't have minded that much having this fabric being on the wrong side showing. I think it probably would have been okay. So it's something I'm just going to consider in the future. But I think in general, it's a really beautiful dress. It was a very nice, easy, fun one to put together. There are some nice big roomy pockets that are anchored at the waist. Now I will say I did find the construction of the pocket a little bit overcomplicated. I've done a very similar pocket construction with Jennifer Lauren Handmaid's pattern. So the Isla dress, the Ferris jumpsuit, and the Laneway dress. All of those have what I would prefer as a method of putting this kind of anchored inseam pocket, but I got there in the end. It just felt a little bit more complicated. I did add an extra tier on the bottom just to make it a little bit more floaty, a little bit more feminine. I initially made this with the long sleeve and I didn't really like it. I felt like the proportion seemed a bit off and it didn't feel as like much of a summery dress to me. So I ended up shortening it down to the shorter sleeve option. When you look at the line drawings, because it's a slightly odd, like it's a drop sleeve, it's a slightly odd proportion dress. When I looked at the short sleeve, it looked like it was going to be super short and look a bit bizarre, but actually it's not. This is the short sleeve. It's basically just over the elbow, which to me is great. I did lengthen this cuff section though, because it's meant to be the same cuff section, whether it's the longer or the shorter sleeve. And when I made it for the longer sleeve, it was absolutely fine. There was a good amount of room here. But if I'm going up and wanting to go past my elbow, it needed to be wider. So I lengthened that cuff by 2 inches. So I definitely recommend doing that. There is a bit of extra room, but I would rather that when I'm moving around. I don't want things to be too tight. To me, that just makes more sense for this length of the sleeve. There are a lot of really beautiful details on this dress. So there's gathers under the bodice. Like I said, I added that gathered here at the end. There's some gathers into the shoulder seams and into the cuffs. There's this lovely tie detail, and I just basically now have this top stitching detail from where I put that facing on the inside. It's a bit of a funny construction, and I will say I think it's probably suited better to slightly different styles of fabrics if you're going to be using the extra panel. But again, I think I would definitely be interested in making this again, and I would want to make sure that I have that panel more external. It almost looks like it's a princess seam, but it's not a princess seam. And so I think that's maybe what threw me with what was going to happen if I kind of swapped around where the facing was going to go. There's an option to make it without a tie, but I like the tie even though I'm not going to tie it. I think it just looks nice, just kind of hanging there as a little bit of an extra detail. This dress is very much what I wanted and what I hoped it was going to be. It feels floaty, it feels feminine, it feels ultra comfortable. I feel like this is definitely something that I'm going to be throwing on again and again. I know it's going to be a big win for me in my wardrobe. I've been wearing it loads. I've only just made it recently, but I've hardly wanted to take it off my body. As soon as it's come out of the wash, I'm really excited to put it on again. So definitely a big win. Really, really love this dress. I particularly like with this lightweight fabric that it's a little bit more figure hugging. I wouldn't say it's hugging your figure, but it kind of drapes and hangs on the figure in a nice way. I would personally really only want to make this in a drapier type fabric. I wouldn't want to make it anything too structured because I feel like being so oversized, it could get a bit tent-like for me. As it is though, love it. Definitely want to make more March dresses. I almost forgot to mention my March dress, I actually ended up making a massive boo-boo. Because Indian block print fabric is so light, sometimes it is not obvious if you have fabric folded under itself. Generally speaking, I feel the fabric as it's going through the sewing machine just to make sure that I've got just like 2 layers going together. But this fabric, when it's bunched up, doesn't feel that massively different. And I ended up sewing together a section of the bottom of the skirt into that bottom tier, and I didn't realize. I serged it, and only then did I realize it was all bunched up and I couldn't figure out why. When I unpicked, there was a hole because the serger had trimmed a section, just a, I would say, pretty small section, but I couldn't leave it like that. So I decided to do a bit of a patchwork. Because I had shortened the sleeve, I had a section of that sleeve available. So I was able to lay that underneath and basically patch that up and just do a zigzag stitch going around. I also overlocked the inside of that, so basically the other side of that fabric, just to make sure that I was gonna not have any fraying issues in the future. I don't think it's hugely obvious because it is quite a floaty dress with a lot of gathers. It's quite full. I don't think your eyes would draw to it, but if you did see it, it's pretty obvious what happened. But I did a good job pattern matching. I did the best I could, and I honestly clearly had already forgotten about it, so it's clearly not a big deal for me. And like I said, those were the only garments that I made because I spent most of the month piecing together my standing tall quilt. I only realized recently that standing tall quilt is designed by Cedar Quilt Co., which is owned by Helen of Helen's Closet. So it's been a real Helen's Closet type month for me. This quilt top is ready to be turned into a quilt. I have now put together my quilt backing, but I did that in August, so I won't show you guys that yet, and to be sandwiched together. I am doing quilt along, you guys may know already, with Sarah of Sew Sarah Sewed, and we are supposed to be finishing this towards the end of August. We'll see if that happens. I'm hoping it will happen, but at the very least I'll be able to give you an update next month. So far so good though. I love the way it's looking. I got some fabulous pictures. My favorite, of course, is me standing in front of the window with beautiful backlit so that I've got all the light showing through to show all those beautiful quilting lines. I think this is going to be such a gorgeous quilt to have on my bed, and I am excited to get it finished up this month. And sewing a quilt for myself was the #1 thing on my list this year of 24 things I wanted to do in 2024. If you are not familiar with that list, if you're not familiar with the concept, you can check out the video at the beginning of the year where I talked about what I wanted to do this year. I'm going to be making a quilt. I'm definitely working along that, so I feel like it makes sense to lead right into the rest of updates about life and with my 24 for 2024. First things first is to talk about my living room. So last I told you guys we were having a bit of a drama where our sofa would not fit into the living room. We had to send it away and then wait for a new one to arrive, taking turns sitting on a single chair that we had. We did also have my closet core poof that I had, but it was definitely a bit of a sad time. And I am delighted to say that we have all our furniture now in place and we are so happy with it. So we got a really lovely sofa that's like a chaise lounge, like corner sofa type situation in this really wonderful, I want to say it's like a very soft red, dark pink kind of color. And that matches, I think, really well or coordinates really well with our mustard yellow chair that we got. We got some new lamps with some lampshades that I think work really well. There's definitely a vibe. There's a color palette with everything that we've put together there, and we are loving what we have so far. It goes really well with the curtains that I made last year. The linen curtains match really well. We're still on the fence about what color to paint the walls. We don't want beige, gray, boring. We want color in that room. That's kind of the whole thing. But I'm aware that there's a lot of color in that room already. So we're gonna have to see and play around with some options, get some paint samples and put them up on the wall. We're not rushing for that though. We're definitely happy to just sit and enjoy where we are, finally having some furniture that we picked out for ourselves that we really love. And so far so good. That corner seat, the chaise lounge seat, I have to say is perfect. When you can sit in the window, look out the window, it literally points toward the sunset. It's pretty magical and I've definitely been enjoying sitting in that seat. It is a big sofa though, so there is room for some more cushions. So I've ordered 2 more cushion fillers and I'm gonna make a couple more cushions using some of my scrap fabrics. And then I also wanted to do another punch needle cushion. I already have all the kit and things ready to make, and I'm gonna use up all the scraps of my previous punch needle yarns. And now for the first thing I get to cross off my 24 for 2024, which is to take a pottery class. This has been something I've wanted to do for a very long time, and it's something that I just really wanted to do a bit of a taster. A lot of pottery classes you have to sign up for like a 4-week, 8-week, 12-week course, and realistically I didn't know if A, I was going to enjoy it, or B, my hand and wrist were going to be able to handle it. My hand and my wrist are progressing basically as before, no major change, no updates from that. But I will say the pottery was actually fine. It didn't really irritate it. When you're doing pottery, anyone who knows pottery, you're probably going to know this. I'm right-handed, which is where I've got the issues with my hand and my wrist. But the majority of the work is actually in your opposite hand, stabilizing the clay. So my left hand was doing a lot more of the work, and my right hand was just very gently shaping things. I did a taster course where I had a bit of an intro and got to play around with trying to make some pots. I was not amazing at it, but I had a ton of fun doing it. I went with a friend of mine who was a sewing friend who was definitely very much a natural. We had an option to make up to 3 pots. I had only one that turned out usable. I'm still waiting for them to glaze it and get it back to me. I will share a photo when I do have it like in my hands I can then show you, but I can show you the pictures of our finished pottery and us very proudly showing off what we've made. So take a pottery class number 8, crossed off the list. I will say I'm definitely intrigued and interested to try pottery more than that, so to actually do more of like a longer course. But I'd have to keep my eyes peeled for something that would work for me with work, because I can't necessarily have the same day off consistently. So it's not necessarily that easy for me to sign up for like a, set every Saturday or something like that. But something I would definitely like to do at some point in the future. It was honestly really fun. It was very satisfying to try and work with the clay, but I definitely need to practice how much pressure to put on there, and definitely a lot more work to do till I'm able to make anything more than a basic little bowl. I've also picked out some poetry highlights for you guys. So one of the things I've been wanting to do this year is to reread these books. This is volume 3 of the haiku translated and compiled by RH Blythe, the Summer Autumn version. I've got some goodies that will be down in the description box. And I've also been working a bit more through my E. Cummings Complete Poems book. Definitely some big highlights there, including one of my favorite poems, probably my favorite poem. I think it's probably my favorite E. Cummings poem, starting with Somewhere I Have Never Traveled. Again, will be down in the description box if you guys like some poetry. Check it out. One more thing that I had really wanted to do this year was to go to an old favorite place that I hadn't visited in a while. And my husband and I took a really lovely trip down to Arundel, Swanbourne Lake, down on the south coast of England. It's somewhere that he took me on my first trip to the UK. We have visited quite a few times since then, but it's been a good while since we've been, and it was really wonderful and very nostalgic to go back. It has not changed in many ways. Obviously it's aged a bit, and there's a little bit of like certain paths in the woods that you can't go through that you used to be able to go through. But basically it's just a really beautiful, peaceful area. There's a lovely lake with lots of ducks and swans, but there's also just a really nice country walk that you can go around, kind of up past the lake and then round and back again. We always stop off for a picnic while we're there, usually come back and get an ice cream on the other side. We went on a really beautiful day. I feel like it was the perfect weather for it, and I really did enjoy the trip. It felt really wonderful to be able to step back in time. We very much were thinking about a lot of those conversations we'd had on that first time we were there, walking along that path, and feeling like if we were back then and were able to see our future selves, we think we'd be pretty happy with where our lives have turned out, which is a good feeling and a nice thing to be able to say. So here we go. I got to cross off, go to an old favorite place that I haven't visited in years. I'm feeling pretty good with this list because there are quite a few of these things that are not going to be crossed off really until the end. And there are definitely some that I've got in the back of my mind of things that I'm going to want to be doing soon. Today is a phone-free day. That was another one that I've been wanting to work on this year, having a phone-free day every week, which has been mostly successful. Occasionally when I have a day where I'm planning not to look at my phone at all, I end up having to look at it because either there's likely people who are wanting to get in touch, or I maybe need to just double check something on my phone. But on the whole, it's working well for me, and I am loving having that one day. I actually snuck 2 days this week without a phone. And the last thing that I feel like I have to mention that happened in July is that I hit 10,000 subscribers on my channel, which is pretty wild and exciting and a little bit mind-blowing, if I'm honest with you guys. I have something exciting that I want to share with you guys in the next couple of weeks as a bit of a thank you, so do stay tuned for that. But for now, I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who has been subscribed to my channel, who's been watching my videos and liking and sharing and all that stuff. If you are not subscribed to my channel already, what are you waiting for? It's free. Just hit that subscription button down below. If you did enjoy today's video, please do give me a like. We know that it does help YouTube to share my videos to a wider audience, help other people find my videos. Let me know in the comments down below if there are anything that stood out about the things that I made this month, or any of my 24 for 2024 updates. I would love to hear if you guys had any 24 for 2024 plans this year, or any just goals at the beginning of the year, how those have been getting on. I feel like we're coming into a decent portion into the second half of the year. I feel like it seems like a good time to check in and see how we're all getting on and cheer each other on as much as we need to. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will be back again to see you very soon with another video. Bye!